Good morning. It's Monday, 6th the 11th, 2023. I guess the purpose of a short series of videos is to highlight a few things that I guess I've run across and mistakes I've made that I think probably could benefit a lot of others should you find yourself in similar situations. Look, one article I read this morning was on Mr. David McBride. He's a whistleblower soldier, highlighted some serious issues regarding the Australian Defence Force. And as it turns out, next Monday he's due to front court in Canberra to face serious criminal charges for telling the truth. So, purpose of this is there room for the truth in our society today? And I guess you can make your own mind up on that by the evidence I present going forward, in a series of things. And the first one is industrial relations. Look, as you're probably all aware, I had a court case that started off in the Fair Work Commission, an industrial relations case where my situation was, how would you put it, manipulated. My membership of the CFMEU, I guess the strongest union in Australia, but the Queensland branch. I can't speak for other states, but there was an article this morning on industrial relations reform, how they can't get certain aspects of that over the line. And look, I want to talk about the judicial system. And look, I have faith in the judicial system in terms of if there's a decision made, then that's it. They go on the way you can present your evidence best, as opposed to how the opposition or the other party can present their evidence the best. So the things I want to talk about are the law, the process, representation, and even justices of the peace, because they're all bound by legislation. They're all bound by codes of ethics. In fact, when people take an oath to the bar, they take an oath to uphold the truth. So it's all out there in the public domain. In actual fact, I wrote a letter this morning to a senator and gave my view on a few things. Actually, I'll read that out to you. I'll withhold his name, but basically it says, to the Honourable Senator, in relation to current industrial relations reforms, recently I had a long-running series of court cases that went from the Fair Work Commission to the steps of the High Court. The case essentially was in relation to my membership of the CFMEU. Through the course of hearings, very disturbing evidence was uncovered showcasing billions of dollars of white-collar crime. There was a penalty awarded, but to this day, no form of investigation has been imposed, nor penalty, how would you put it, had, which in terms of, there was an award, and there's an article there. If you Google Tyson versus Heiko, you'll see. But look, in essence, when it all boiled down to it, we've got a company that does billion-dollar government contracts, that's currently doing billion-dollar government contracts, that was found against, but yet they chose to wind up a one-share, $1 company, something that I didn't know the shareholder, I didn't know the person that was the owner of that company, but as it turns out, we're all employed as daily labour hire, on tier 1 construction. Okay, so I'll just get on with that. I followed the bureaucratic process through the Fair Work Commission, Registered Organisations Commission, Australian Building Construction Commission, Fair Work Ombudsman, the Australian Consumer Construction Commission, Corruption Commission, and the Federal Police, whom I was directed to inquire to by these other agencies, only to be sent right back to the start, the Fair Work Commission, who found that my CFMEU membership was not an industrial instrument, that I was only covered by the national award instead. That means my CFMEU membership just simply did not apply to me, even though when you turn up on tier 1 construction sites, You have to be a member, or you simply don't last. And there's a few tape recordings at a later date I'll share in that regard. That was a part of my original disclosure. So essentially, I'm covered under this Whistleblower Protection Act, the same as Mr. McBride, which in essence means absolutely nothing. All it does is leave you open to prosecution, not protection. Nothing's followed up on. There is no bureaucratic process that has your back. So, and if there's one thing I've learned from experience, no one's going to walk through the door and help you. It doesn't matter how many letters you write, to how many ministers, to how many bureaucratic organisations. The onus ultimately is on you to protect you. That's simple. The whole point of this disclosure was to initiate investigation into this matter. It beggars belief that the National Secretary is the signatory of the CFMEU on behalf of the worker on the Heinrich EBA, of which employees are supposedly covered. They simply watch as employees, who are the largest contributors to CFMEU membership in Queensland, are sneakily, underhandedly and criminally stripped of their basic rights under the industrial relations legislation. Membership of the CFMEU is required, although workers are not covered, but it is required to be financial to work on construction projects that fall, and this falls under the ACCC guidelines, but by charging for a service that simply does not exist. That means we just aren't covered under the EBA. That is Heinrich, and at times they've had up to 1,000 employees, all sneakily employed by these little one-share, dodgy $1 companies with, you only have to look currently at Heinrich Constructions, like his daughter's the $1 one-share owner. Workers at the time in the industry contributed roughly $500 weekly to CFMEU control funds. That's your SIPs, your BUS, your BERT, all these things, and you only got to historically look through. And members of the CFMEU all sit on boards of these things. There was roughly 2,000 members at that time in Queensland. This is 2018. Really is a staggering amount annually when you consider each employee contributes $500 weekly times 20,000. This is in Queensland. The industrial relation reforms needs to address and include prosecutions against criminal behaviour and criminal coercion. The overarching company of the Heinrich Group and still in control of billions of dollars of federal and state government aligned contracts. The millions of dollars propping up agencies that identify yet simply pass the buck, and mockery of the justice system being covered under the Whistleblower Act. Not that that really means much, but there is a way I can contribute, and can you initiate proper investigation? Basically, in essence, that means not only does the taxpayer money fund high-level criminal enterprise, but it also takes away from things like the hospital ramping issue, the proper money that should go to hospitals. Now, my gripe with the whole thing is, if contracts awarded under the basic labour hire agreement, which is casual, and basically the bottom line is this is in the workers' pay packet. If you're employed casually, say if you do the hours we were doing, you'd roughly get, say, $5,000 in your pay packet, $6,000 roughly. But if you're employed under the EBA, which is a permanent agreement, your wage drops to well under half that because you're employed permanently. So is the tender process at the casual rate? I can pretty much guarantee you the answer is. So the fleecing of the taxpayer's purse doesn't just stop there. All these organisations that take multi-million dollars a year to fund, like Fair Work Commission, Fair Work Ombudsman, ACCC, the whole lot of them, you can throw them all in the same basket. They do not lift a finger to help anyone. What they do is they'll circumvent every single issue and they'll pass the buck on in writing. Oh, this does not fall under our legislation or our powers. So I went through that whole process. You ring the federal police, you just get some answering service and they just flick you. It means absolutely nothing to them. And in fact, someone from one of these organisations said to me, "Oh, don't you think you just should have worried about yourself and not worried about the guy that had the accident? Well, this guy can't walk ever again. This guy can't earn a living. This guy's lost everything." And I don't think well, I probably shouldn't say this, but he's actually tried to end his own life a couple of times. So if that sits right with you, if everything in your life just revolves around you, then heaven help us. Like my original statement, is there any room for honesty? I'd say with a lot of these people, the answer is absolutely no. Now, we'll just move on a little bit. There's a process you have to follow. Now, during this process, I went through the Fair Work Commission. So through this whole process, no, just before I get to that, I'll identify who Heinrich had as their legal representation. So you had basically James Comenos, JCL lawyers, and a whole team of people there. Now, I probably should note this, that through process there's a series of what they call interlocutory hearings. So these are things to say, set aside the subpoena that I put in for Hoss Heinrich to give evidence and for me to cross-examine him, under oath. So you have people like Jim Murdoch, King's Counsel, former head of the bar, Chris Murdoch, King's Counsel, industrial relations expert, Charles Martin, father's former industrial relations commissioner, as I understand it, a judge. I don't know what court that's in now, but another industrial relations expert, and JCL, who team of lawyers under their control. Now, they take an oath when they're accepted to the bar, and that is to uphold the truth. Now, through this whole series, I have correspondence, and in fact, hearings in the Fair Work Commission were set aside to accommodate Hoss Heinrich. Terms are used like Mr. Heinrich is the only one who can make decision in this matter. The Heinrich group of companies. So you just bear that in mind. So we actually had an adjournments while Heinrich had holidays. And that went on later. We later on, as it turns out, a lady called Helga Bennett, his sister, is the one share, $1 director in, the company at that time, Heiko Constructions Proprietary Limited, that I was supposedly employed by as a daily labour hire employee on the Jewel. So we're talking a multi-billion-dollar development there. Now, there was no contract, no terms of employment. All there was when I went to the Jewel, I signed on as an employee, which is normal practice, even though at that time I wasn't employed by Heiko. I was employed by another company under the Heinrich umbrella. And it just went from there. So I was basically, and like I say, at a later stage, I'll present those recordings, but I witnessed an accident. I watched as my company, Heinrich, members of the CFMEU, and in that way I mean the site delegate, not all the site delegates, but site delegates, members of Multiplex, altered the accident scene. Now, I've been around long enough and I know that these things need to remain unaltered until investigation is undertaken. Now, even on that, WorkSafe Queensland, like I don't know if you all realise, but over half of their inspectors have all resigned over the course of the last year or so due to malpractice, and the CFMEU controlling how investigations are done, like walking on site, identifying, and these are non-union sites. We're talking other sites that are just covered under the National Award the employees, which is in my view, a very minimal wage and really needs to be addressed. And identifying things that aren't on their hazardous register and finding individuals for not having like tube of silicon, can of spray paint, for instance, on that register. Now, these fines are taken on board by the worker. They have to pay it, not the company they're working for. So anyway, enough on that. So the CFMEU. Now let's just talk about the Heinrich EBA. So the signature on behalf of the worker, that's me. All these other, up to 1,000 workers that are employed by Heinrich under that supposed EBA is Jade Ingham, the national president of the CFMEU. So Mr. Ingham isn't a worker, neither is Mr. Avbar. You have a look into their history, what they actually are. These people are imposters into a working man's realm. Now, I'll go on record right here and now. I am a unionist. I believe in the collective group of us, the worker, to be able to enforce policies as it's written. That is the industrial relations policies. The reforms that come under that, we should contribute to it. Now, if Mr. Ingham is the signature on that EBA, why isn't that EBA enforced onto the worker? Why isn't the workers' rights upheld? Now, remember what the worker contributes weekly, $500 to forms of industry control funds. Now, you do the math on that over a year. You do the math on that in the terms of investment, the percentage of investment that's had staggering amounts of money. So what I'm going to do from here on in, I'm going to actually present court documents. I'll present what's written. Then I'll present what they said at later dates. Now, if you take an oath or write an affidavit, that's your given word. You can't at a later date just totally backtrack and say the exact opposite. Now, something's happened here, okay? Either Mr. Murdoch was given wrongful information by JCL lawyers, or JCL lawyers were given wrongful information by Mr. Hoss Heinrich. Pretty simple here. Or the only other options, they've all colluded together to shaft, I guess, me. But in the big scheme of things, there was decision in my favour in one aspect of that case. If I'd probably had, I guess, proper help from any of those organisations I highlighted before, then I should have had decision in my favour in every single aspect of that case. These people aren't here to help you. They curtail or they use you for a payday. They put themselves between me, another form of hierarchy, and there's a payday. It's that simple. There can only be no other explanation. Anyway, like I say, a very, very worrying series of events. But look, this coming Sunday, there's I guess what they describe it as a Woodstock-style rally at Glebe Park, Canberra, in support of not just Mr. McBride, but also the countless other whistleblowers, I guess, that have come out. Similar situations to me, and their lives going forward have been dramatically affected. I'll never work in the industry again. It's that simple. And look, there is other things currently afloat in the Queensland construction industry where workers have walked off site, and we're talking workers employed by a company under that Heinrich umbrella, haven't been paid, different aspects, and I guess it'll flow on from here. But someone with the power has got to step up and have a go for the little guys. It's that simple. These industrial relations laws are just that, laws. Does there need to be change? Yes. If you profit from the misery of others, and it is just that, misery, you deserve to have some form of recompense thrown at you. It's that simple. But anyway, to the next time, and I'm sure it won't be too late. As you can see behind me, I'm currently correlating Mr. Murdoch, Mr. Komenos's previous statements against the truth. Anyway, goodbye for now. Thank you for watching. Sorry it went on a bit. Have a nice day. Bye.